In this video, I'm gonna share 10 kettlebell myths that are simply not true. Chris Mitrand, creator van Lebe Stock here. We're all about kettlebells, so if you are into kettlebells, you have to like this video and consider subscribing. Number 1, kettlebells burn massive amounts of calories. Now they do burn calories, but they don't burn this massive amount that you sometimes see plastered all over these fitness DVDs. Now granted, if you use kettlebells the right way, you might burn slightly more calories. However, the effort that you have to invest might be too hard and just too much, especially for beginners. Now this doesn't mean that kettlebells don't burn calories, but sometimes this number is just completely exaggerated. Number 2, kettlebells are better than dumbbells and barbells. They're not better, they're just different. They offer you a different perspective. And depending on your goals and depending on what you want to do, this demands on what tool you have to use, because this is what the kettlebell is. It is just another tool in your toolbox. Number 3, the opposite side. Kettlebells are worse than dumbbells and barbells. Now, of course, depending on how you look at it, as we've stated before, it's all about goals and it's context specific. So if you ask me what would be the best exercise or the best training modality to build strength that is technically easier to load, then I would opt in for a barbell. If you ask me which exercise touches all bases or training modality in that extent touches all bases, coordination, mobility, the shock method, the strength, muscle building, whatever have you, then I would opt in for the kettlebell. But like I mentioned, it is so important to note that you need to know what goal you're after, and this will dictate the strategy. Number 4, the kettlebell swing is bad for your back. What happens in a kettlebell swing? Kettlebell swings will generate shear forces in the lower part of your spine, and there are people who are more tolerant and there are people who are less tolerant. Even this one study from McGill notes that some people experience beneficial aspects when they start training with kettlebells and when they do swings, and then the back pain even subsides, and some people feel that it irritates their tissues. Now, depending on what type of swing you engage in, it may be that it irritates your tissues. So then you maybe can opt in for a different kind of swing. At the end of the day, if you are having back pain, it is always the best thing to consider talking to a professional in that regard, a therapist or a doctor who is really keen on wanting to help you. Secondly, I can tell you from experience that people have improved their back pain after they started swinging with kettlebells. Now, it may be that at one point in your journey, you are not able to swing weights because the shear forces are so intense that your spine does not tolerate it. So you need to build a basic layer of strength first. And it may be that after this, you're now ready for the kettlebell swing, and this is exactly what your lower back needed to really make the pain go away. So again, it's context specific, but we cannot just walk around and say the kettlebell swings are bad for your back. It's always an individual approach that is needed. Number 5, kettlebells are a great alternative to dumbbells. I say no, that's not true, because the kettlebell is a different tool. I'd like to give you an example. If you do rowing as a sport or as an exercise, and in the summer you go out on the lake or in the ocean or whatever have you, and then you are rowing, fun times, great. In the winter, you need an alternative for the lake or the ocean, and therefore you buy yourself an indoor water rower. This is what an alternative is. And the reason why I want to be so specific with this word is because people think that the kettlebell can be treated like a dumbbell. While this is true that you can treat it to a certain extent like a dumbbell, the kettlebell does have significant and unique benefits that are only reserved for the kettlebell and that the dumbbell or even the barbell does not provide. Number 6, extremely light weights are beneficial to start. I have to disagree. The reason why you need some form of weight independent of whether you touched the kettlebell before or if you have never lifted anything in your life, we need proper feedback. So for women, I say that's an 8 kg, and for men, I say that's a 12 kg. This is a broad generalization, and of course there may be nuance in this specific area when you start working with an individual. However, we see from experience, and the percentages lead toward that direction, that you can trust buying an 8 kg as a female or a 12 kg as a male. The reason is simple. You need proper feedback for the most important muscles to fire, and these are, when we treat the kettlebell like it was designed to be used, when we want to go about its specific function, your hip muscles. And your hip muscles, they are the strongest muscles in your body, and therefore if the weight is too light, you become what we call arm dominant. So you start swinging the weight with your arms instead of your hips. Number 7, you always need wrist guards because it's almost unbearable to rack a kettlebell on your forearm. Again, I have to disagree. Now, does it mean that we can never use wrist guards? Of course not. There's one specific condition where we use wrist guards in our gym, and that is if we are trying to focus on cleaning or snatching, and let's say that one day or 2 days before, we started already incorporating these techniques, and now 2 days later you come again into the gym, and then we want to really focus and hone in on the clean, and you're like, wow, it starts hurting to a certain extent. Then we say, okay, you know what, your soft tissues, they haven't adapted already, but maybe you want to continue with the clean, and we will continue building the fundamentals. Let's use a wrist guard temporarily. This is the key word. However, if you always use the wrist guard and you're like, that's the first thing that I do, I have to put my wrist guards on and then I start working, then you never give your soft tissues, your skin, even your bone, your ligaments, your tissues, whatever have you, your blood vessels, you don't give them the chance to adapt to the weight. So at the end of the day, it's all about technique, because after your soft tissues have adapted, if you use the perfect technique, it'll never hurt again. Number 8, kettlebells destroy your palm skin. This is true to a certain extent. Now, just a few seconds ago, I was talking about technique, and in this case, the emphasis stays on technique. Again, we have soft tissues right here, right on your palm. The skin has to adapt when you start moving weights. So it may be that blisters are forming. It may even be that you rip open your palm skin to a certain extent, especially when you go into a competition, for example. It may be that you go all out and now you go over the top and then you hurt yourself. But 99% of people who use kettlebells don't go into competitions, so you don't have to do this. It may be that every once in a while, one of those blisters gets cut open, but not bloody, and not to an extent where you cannot lift a kettlebell anymore. Now granted, and this is a pro tip, do not snatch or clean or swing too intensely. Dial it down, make sure you have proper space in your workout regime dedicated to the ballistic exercises, and then give your soft tissues time to heal. Number 9, kettlebells come from Russia. Now, it's only true to a certain extent. Geronimo Milo is a good friend of mine, and he's I would say the father of Argentinian kettlebell training. He's done extensive research on kettlebells and their origins. I highly recommend you to watch this video right here, where we talk about the origins of the kettlebell on our Kettle Nights podcast. Pivotal figures from Tsarist Russia in the beginning of the 20th century, and even at the end of the 19th century, traveled throughout Europe. And in Europe, they discovered how people were using the kettlebell. They took these techniques and these ideas to Russia, and they developed them further. We can say that those scale weights, they were everywhere, even in Switzerland, a rock with a handle. But if you want to be very specific on the kettlebell as a training tool, then we can pinpoint its origins rather to Europe. And from there, it spread to Russia, and then it took over the world, as we all know. Number 10, there's only one way to train with kettlebells. Mea culpa, I believe that as well. I was stuck in the tribal mindset. I thought kettlebell sports is the way to go. I realized it's not the case. Thanks to my friend Sean Mosen, I incorporate the following principle into kettlebell training. If I want high tension, I apply a different style. If I want high volume, I apply a different style. To make it even easier, do I want strength endurance? I go into this type of direction. Do I want to build explosive strength? I go into another type of direction. So just because you see somebody lifting a kettlebell, especially with a lot of background and experience, and if you dig a little deeper, you're like, ooh, this person actually knows stuff about kettlebell training. Just because it looks different than your style or what you have been taught doesn't mean that it is wrong. And another thing that you want to think about is, depending on your anthropometrics, it may even be that your squat, your swing, your press, your lunge, your snatch may look a little different. Now, there are some red flags, especially when we do our reactions to these workouts. There are red flags, undeniably. So we have to acknowledge the fact that there's people who use the kettlebell and they don't know what they're talking about. And it may even be dangerous, especially when you use heavier weights. But most of these people don't use heavier weights. But I'm digressing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't always mean just because you see something that's different that it is automatically wrong. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like it and consider subscribing. And if I missed any one of these myths, or you see it differently, you're like, Gregory, I think that's not true, I think you're wrong, then let me know down in the comments. The world of kettlebells is dominated by two training styles called hardstyle and kettlebell sport. Although vastly different in nature, they have been proven to work and give you the most bang for your buck whenever you pick up a kettlebell, if you understand them correctly and are able to differentiate between the two. If you are a beginner, this task might be understandably confusing. Enter the hybrid style and discover how to combine the best of both worlds. The hybrid style masterclass is a 10-week practice-based online course that will help you take your kettlebell skills to an elite level, made in Switzerland. Learn what's been holding you back and how to become a versatile kettlebell master without having to piece together countless YouTube videos or rely on a gym membership. The price of the hybrid style masterclass is $397 per month for 3 months. Save 20% with a one-time payment of $997. We'll open registration only to a small number of new students every 3 months. Join the waiting list now to get access 24 hours before the general public. Link is in the description.